LUFC fan channel. This is another Leeds United live stream. We do match previews, reviews, watch-alongs, interviews. So if you're a Leeds fan, we'd love your support by smashing that subscribe button like a fist to the chest. And if at any point during the video that you like it, please give it a thumbs up. The stream will start in 5 minutes and you can find the countdown timer down here. In the meantime, chat away and we'll see you very soon. Here's the light show.
Something I presume I come in closer cause I know what to say. I tie her in a buy a drink before she knows her mistake. The place started to rise already over the hill. This are flying and not the only thing. Don't go home, get involved in the ring. Cues and fingers, are you gonna get away? Na na na, na 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 na, na na na, na 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 na. I spent a tenner and she didn't even drink the shot. I see a figure facing in the fog. The Scarlet River is soaking into his white socks. The streets tied to kids are fighting out in the block. Broken buttons and now the only thing left are falling round to the floor. Every weekend it's a battle on me.
The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions.
Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all.
The Roaring Peacock Podcast.
Welcome back to the Roaring Peacock LUFC fan channel and podcast. This is the Under-23s season review, and we will be talking about the season overall, magic moments, the player of the season, the 18s player of the season, the Apprentice of the season, player of the two, Premier League 2 Player of the Month awards and Player of the Season awards. To talk about all this with me, my name is Adonis at the Adelites on Twitter. If you didn't know, is the Roaring Peacocks Juicy Rob.
Evening, everyone. How are you?
Very good, thanks, Rob. The Yorkshire Evening Post's Joe Urquhart.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you, Joe. And Leeds United Television Under-23 commentator Tom Hill.
Good evening, guys.
Hello. How is everybody? Firstly, first thoughts. I want to get your first thoughts on that sort of title-winning season. Joe, should we start with you?
You can do, yeah. No one listens to Tom, do they? So,
okay, we'll start with Tom then.
No, I think it's been a fantastic 12 months or so for sort of the under-23s in the academy. I think when Carlos Corberán left, there was, I don't know, a bit of a, not a void, but a bit of a worry about where it went next. And Mark Jackson sort of slotted in there seamlessly and done a fantastic job, obviously, which began with the Category 1 sort of academy status, that being awarded. And then when it started, I think, 4-0 defeat at Stoke on the opening day, with all the new signings. I think they were always going to take a little bit of time to get into sort of a rhythm and gel. And they just went from strength to strength throughout the month, throughout the season. And what we ended up having was quite phenomenal, really, wasn't it? First season in the and to get promoted was fantastic. And Mark Jackson, I don't think I can praise enough the sort of job that he's done with the players, integrating the first team, integrating new signings, taking the sort of local homegrown talent, and they've just been stunning to watch this year.
Tom?
Yeah, just echo really what Joe says, mate. Just, to come into that level first time around and learn the hard way. The first couple of games where you were, you lost 4-0, then you were 2-0 up, and then you drew 2-2, and then just to adapt as the fixtures got going as well. And I think I've seen a few different club websites dig a little bit about the fact that the first team is in there, but I think it's more testament to the fact that the 23s were on the bench for the first team quite a lot as well. We had to use quite a few of them. We know that they're put into the first team sessions, so physically very demanding on them. But yeah, they just excelled, and obviously the points gap tells you all you need to know of how good they've been this season. And yeah, again, as Joe said, just a pleasure to watch, mate. There were some games where I'd look down at the time and it'd be 60 or 70 minutes. I feel like I've been sat there for 5 or 10. So yeah, very impressed, and long may it continue, and hopefully it's just a start or something.
Okay, and Rob, obviously Matty is normally with us, and this is his account, the LUFC Academy Central at LUFC Academy News. So give Matty a follow. 24 games, 18 wins, unbeaten at home with 11 wins and a draw, 62 goals scored, 29 conceded, comfortably the best in the division. So Rob, what were your sort of first thoughts on that title-winning season?
Yeah, phenomenal. I think from start to finish, you could see without the whole squad, there was a virtual integration, which we spoke about a lot on our podcast when we've looked at the under-23s. You can really see that kind of ethos from first team, the lads that have stepped up 23s to first 11 and then back down, and also with the 18s as well. There's a real smooth interaction, and trust me, I think behind the scenes it's a lot more frantic than they make it look on the pitch. A lot of squad chopping and changing, and to achieve what they did with the level of consistency that they did and the level of professionalism, cool, wise heads on young shoulders, brilliant footballing IQ, handled the season really well, and it's been a joy to watch them all year. Fantastic.
So just a bit of chat then. So Nora is our moderator. She's just saying, evening, everyone. Mike P said, evening to the gorgeous Nora, virtual hug. And that's my fiance you're talking. No, that's fine. She is gorgeous, isn't she? And Mike has said, he's obviously jealous of the attention you deserve, Nora, which I guess is why he's found the loudest shirt in the Northern Hemisphere to try and get some more attention. Thanks, Mike. And yeah, just evening, everyone, says Nova. I want to get this off my chest before I forget about it, because we'll be getting into magic moments, player of the season, all that sort of thing. But Crystal Palace are going to be joining us in Premier League 2 Division 1. And I know that it was a bit annoying for you, Rob, because they were the ones we had to pay for to watch. I think it was it £3?
Yeah, $2.99, I think, wasn't it, or $1.99? I think at the time there was a bit of I was a disgruntled customer. To be fair, their coverage was decent. The people that produced the production of it was pretty good. But I just think with the amount of content that was going out during the pandemic and so on for free, and football was such at the forefront of everyone's mental health and helping a lot of people through a lot of times, I think to charge for development games was a bit cheeky. However, the quality of the games that we've been treated to for free has been a blessing, because obviously equally, I guess LUTV or Leeds, the club, could have done the same with the amount of quality on show. And as I think Tom mentioned, we had obviously under first 11 team players stepping down. So, we spoke about it a lot during the podcast. I think next year, if all been well with COVID restrictions been relaxed a little bit, I think that the 23s or the development squad, especially in that division that we're now promoted to and the quality of opposition we're going to see, I think they'll have a massive following. I think this season's done so much for the brand of the academy and the development squads that I think that'll seep down to the 23s, 18s and so on. And I think we'll see a huge digital. I think I tweeted out one time during one of the games that there was, I think, 8,000 fans watching on Facebook. There was equally as many on YouTube, and then another couple of thousand on Twitter. So, you're taking virtually 12,000 fans to a 23s game on a Monday lunchtime when everyone should be at work. Leeds will always take more, won't they? So I'm looking forward to what next season's got to bring.
Yeah, and I just wanted to show you, this is them celebrating their 0-0 draw. There you go. And you probably, I presume you had to pay for that as well. So £3 for your 0-0 draw. So I guess the boardroom was a bit like that as well. They were celebrating too. I think that, not to get all Yorkshire about it, but it was one of those tight things. I was willing to pay for it. And I think that watching the under 23s, I think maybe an LUTV monthly subscription. I think I'd be happy to pay something like that. Is there anything, considering what is Netflix? Is Netflix like £5 or £10 or something?
Depends how much high definition you want, mate.
And how many screens as well, because you can get on there lots of screens. Yeah.
Just to stick up for Palace, to be fair.
Here we go.
They do it. I just want to balance the argument, really, mate. All of their games do go to their foundation, so that's why. So it's it is like a charitable cause. It all goes back into the club. Joe did text me about it when he found out and moaned about it because he's quite tight. But and I was like, it's nothing to do with me. But there is a few teams that do it. And I know it's frustrating for the fans, but it generally is for a cause that's good for their own club. Mm-hmm. But obviously, as Yorkshire and proud Yorkshire people, it doesn't go down that well sometimes.
Wasn't that the case with the Villa game as well? I think they
yeah, mate. The thing is, obviously, in a way, Leeds are very generous in that respect as well, mate. A lot of clubs would charge for it. It'd be a good way, as Rob said, to the fact that they can't pay £5 on the door at Guiseley or somewhere else. If they made it half that and made it online, it could be a way to get more money in. But there is a couple of clubs, mate, that have done it, and that's just their prerogative when they're at home. So
fair enough. Okay, so let's have some magic moments then. It's been quite a memorable season. Lots of memorable goals. I mean, Sam Greenwood free kick, for example, and some huge wins. So, Rob, let's start with you this time.
I think.
Or are you stalling for time there?
A little bit, yeah, because you've put me on the spot. I thought you were coming to me last. We've got honoured guests on the show tonight. I think in terms of games of the season, I think actually the game, the collapse against Newcastle was the one that kind of set, I think it was the most important of the season, because it preempted the run that we went on and the performance that Mark Jackson and his coaching staff were able to then get out of those lads at a time when the team was chopping and changing due to involvement in the cups and obviously the first 11 injuries and suspensions. So I think that was the most pivotal game for me, because we went on that run afterwards, and I think it really set the stall. In terms of magic moments, I'd say pretty much any time there was link-up play between Drame and Somerville on the right-hand side. That was magic enough for me. Two absolutely outstanding talents for the future. Wonderful to see down the right-hand side. And to a man, they all deserve praise. They've all got games where I can think of games where Cresswell dominated. I can think of games where Kenny took the game by the scruff of the neck and really played that Calvin role. And obviously Gelhardt as well, magic. And Max Dean stepping up. So too many to mention for me. You've put me on the spot. I'll hand over to the more senior gentleman on the chat.
Okay, and Joe and Tom, I want you to fight for who goes next.
Go on, Tom.
Yeah.
So nice, Joe. I think my favourite game was probably just after Newcastle. So it was when they played Villa at home and they were 2-0 down and came back to win 3-2. And that was sort of the moment where I thought they'd learnt their lessons from there was a couple of times before that they were in front against Reading away and lost. They were in front against Wolves and drew. And to be 2-0 down against Villa, who have just won the FA Youth Cup, they had a couple of decent first teamers out that day. I think they had Gilbert and maybe Tom Heaton played. And I just thought it was a great experience for them. I think in terms of favourite moments, like Rob said, he just reeled them off, and it is quite tough. Anything Max Dean did really when he scored generally made me quite smile. It's just like I think how I'd react if I scored in front of the Kop, like just the best feeling in the world. But I think he's been fantastic to watch coming in. Any of Greenwood's free kicks, but my favourite was probably the Villa. The Villa one was probably the nicest feeling, but I think the West Brom one the week before was just a ridiculous strike, and that's I think when all the fans that were watching probably knew that the title was in the bag. And just to praise the defence just for a moment, just because I know he got a bit of stick online for it, I thought the Ollie Casey block when they were 2-1 up against Villa and he threw himself across the box, and we had a man down because Charlie got sent off, and I think a lot of fans got on his back after that Crawley game, and I just thought that epitomised what the club's all about. That they'd been in a good position in the game. Unfortunately, Charlie got sent off, and then they were just a simple block. He was celebrating it just as much as the players would do a goal. So they're probably the ones that are memorable. But again, you'd be, between all four of us, you'd be sat here all day really if you went through them. I'm sure Joe's got different ones.
I was obviously Rob sent us the list of what we were discussing. I was trying to think of things that we'd all talk about, and do you know what? One of the moments of the season for me was the red cards at Norwich, just for the pure hilarity of the refereeing. I remember texting Tom and just being like, what is this ref? Like, is this ref seeing the same things? Because it was 3 red cards in that game, and 2 of them were like, I think Kenny got sent off for absolutely nothing. And it was just the refereeing performance was laughable. I think we all had a good fun of that. I think was it Somerville as well who got sent off? Was that a Palace?
That was Palace.
I think I missed that completely on the stream. I got hordes of abuse on Twitter for that because I wasn't paying attention. But to be fair, they didn't show it. And I remember texting Tom like mid-game and being like, has Somerville been sent off here? And he's like, not that I know of. I'm like, Flash Scores is saying he got sent off 10 minutes ago. I was like, ever the professional, me and you, trying to follow the 23. But anytime Sam Greenwood stood over a dead ball, I think he's a player that obviously gets bums off seats, and that's the kind of thing that you want to see at that level. And anytime he was stood over the dead ball situation was pretty special. Him and Joffrey obviously linking up this season was a joy to watch at times, and I think that's a partnership that we're all going to be sort of watching over the next sort of few years, if not 12 months.
Talk about throwing him under the bus, by the way.
Well, everybody needs a Chris Kamara moment, don't they? Has he? Has he been sent off?
Was that the one where no one even saw the first yellow? I didn't even. There was one.
That was the issue. Yeah. That was the issue. I saw the second yellow.
Show the yellow,
when he moaned at the wall, and I couldn't believe that. And then, but yeah, I'll get you back, Joe. Don't worry, man.
It's all right. I completely missed it as well. I mean, at least you were just like, oh, someone's been sent off. At least I did. I was looking at my notifications, going, oh my god, I'm gonna have to tweet out that someone's off 10 minutes ago, and I've missed it.
Trying to count them players.
Here we go. Yeah, I was like, because Tom was like counting them up. I was like, I'm trying, but the camera won't still. Sheer panic.
We've got a few comments here. So Brian Clough is in the chat. Hey, Brian. I thought you weren't with us anymore. Apparently he's back. I'm still waiting for Amadou Haidara's under 23 testimonial. And another one on the same theme. The under 23 streets will never forget Zach Thompson and Casper Sloth. So a few nods to the past there. 8 Ball Ali saying hello. And Now that is a shirt. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. And keep those comments coming. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the awards section. I don't know why awards needs that hand gesture, but apparently it needs some jazz hands. Awards, the awards section. And I guess there's nowhere else to start other than player of the season now. Cody Drame won the official one. But I'm going to ask you for your guys' opinions. Who has been your player of the season? And we'll start off with Joe because he's been so gracious in letting everyone else speak first.
I was trying to make arguments for sort of like 4 or 5 players, but I've gone down the really boring route because I think Cody Drame has been the sort of most consistent player across the season. And you can probably, it's the same at first team level, isn't it? There's been sort of 3 or 4, 5, even 6. You know, you could go across the team and make an argument for each player. But I think when you look at Cody's performances across the season, his one-on-one defending, his development, I think it's been phenomenal, and I'm going to be really boring and just stick with that. I think, you know, Greenwood, the way he scored, 12 goals whilst learning a new position has been nothing short of impressive as well. But I think Cody Drame takes it for me.
Okay. Rob and Tom, you want to fight for who gets to talk next?
You can go first, Rob, mate, if you want.
I'm equally as boring in terms of sticking with the obvious. I mentioned it on our pod before the award ceremony, but I don't think it was difficult to decipher. I think, like Joe said, there was a few players that were in the running. You could make cases definitely for Greenwood. I think you could make a case, obviously, for Cresswell as well. But when you take into account the overall consistency of play, adaptability to join the team and just hit the ground running, make that position his own in terms of there's no challenges for it. Linked up well with anyone that was put in front of him on the right wing. We spoke about it, the plaudits all season, versatile, hardworking, cross a ball, determined. He's everything we want in a right back. He's mini Luke Ayling, isn't he, in terms of effort levels and attainability. I just think Cody Drame was the deserved winner.
The only thing that I think is holding him back for the Ayling thing is I haven't seen him flop enough. He doesn't really seem to go down. It's just, that's the only thing he needs to learn for next season. For mine, I sort of floated a different, the idea across the season. It kept changing with like 4. So I first started with Charlie Cresswell. Then I was, like the rest of the guys, I was quite big on how good Cody had been. Joe Urquhart was then someone that I think has probably on his own, like blown you away really with what he's done and his individual skill. But on the last 2 games of the season, I switched to Sam Greenwood. I think to come in as the number 9 at the start of the season, and then I think if you'd have asked any fan, do you think he can play centre midfield or box to box? I think they'd have just said no. And I think it's testament to the coach and what they see in him to then make him, you know, someone that likes to pass the ball out of midfield. He has this type technique where he can switch the play quite well. His tackling got a bit better because he was leading the yellow cards. He had more yellow cards than goals at the start, which is quite a lot because he was scoring for fun. But I picked him just because to then snap. I know Joe didn't play, but then to snatch the top goal scorer award with a couple of games to go while playing centre mid and up front, I just think he's a fantastic effort. And yeah, it bodes well for the future. Again, under the current regime, if you can play in more than one position, you've got a great chance.
Yeah, I had this feeling of like almost, you know, vague Cristiano Ronaldo sense from Sam Greenwood before he came, you know, left foot, right foot, obviously very, very attacking. But then he's kind of turned into a bit more of a Lee Bowyer. But it's funny that all of us were kind of saying Drame, and he would have been mine as well. And we're the ones we've only watched the under-23s, the Leeds under-23s, basically. Unless you're Matty, who's been watching every under-18 11 aside that he can get his hands on. But it's funny that for Premier League 2 Player of the Season award, they have nominated Charlie Cresswell and Sam Greenwood. Cody Drame is not even in the running.
It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. Okay, keep up.
Almost.
Keep up. I mean, I think again, just to echo what the guy said, I think the fact that we could actually argue for 4 or 5, it just shows you how good they've been, and you really could back it up as well with some strong arguments. So, I think Charlie's been instrumental again at the back. But again, I've been impressed when he was injured or on England duty or in the first team on the bench, and it was down to Noah and Ollie Casey and whoever else they decided to play at centre half, because there was a couple of games where it got a bit mixed, and they just stood up and mixed it to a back three. But yeah, for me, Greenwood just takes it. But what the guys said about Cody is, I don't disagree with any of it.
I think if you look at the award, the way they've put the way players that are up for it, if you were to pick two, if you don't watch Leeds 23s week in, week out, or even every other week, or however often, if you're not a frequent follower, you would probably lean towards Greenwood and Cresswell. And I think the panel of who's decided that has looked at obviously Greenwood's goal contributions, obviously, and obviously the fact that we kept the most clean sheets in the league. So you'd look at Cresswell as a talisman of that, aerial ability, footballing IQ. He led the team, vocal, So I think in terms of, I'm not disputing them as choices. I think they are brilliant. I think Greenwood probably, hopefully, will win it. But it is a shame that Cody wasn't put up for it. But I think unless you're watching week in, week out, some of the subtle nuances and things that happen on a football pitch, unless you watch the 90 minutes, you're not going to know. So a panel will look at a highlight reel potentially and see that Greenwood and Cresswell might have been the stars of a few of those games, whereas Cody might have gone a bit more under the radar unless you're a Leeds fan.
Okay. Getting to your comments then, one from Callum. Drame will take Bill's position in the near future. The versatility is insane in our squad. Russ says, hi lads, can I just say thanks to Tom Hill and Joe Urquhart for the great coverage on the under-23s this season. Both have been great, keeping us all informed. There you go, guys.
Very kind.
Thank you very much, man.
Some food for your ego. Matty is... Geez, Matty, don't put in too much of an effort here. Just put the hand-waving emoji.
Where's he at?
Where's he at?
Is he refereeing tonight? He said he's refereeing.
Yeah, he's refereeing.
You skiving.
Yeah. he's given a player's gone down. He's on his phone.
I was going to say he's not doing much refereeing whilst he's watching YouTube, is he?
Chris Baldwin, these will be like a juggernaut next season. These channels will be orgasm central. Jeez, calm down, Chris.
That's just an ocular one from your shirt, mate.
Lots of chat about the shirt, but I thought I'd try and make this show about the under-23s at some point. I have been a classic peacock though, wearing this shirt. Obviously, I could have chosen a plain white one, maybe. Okay, so continuing with the awards theme, Apprentice of the Year was Noah Kenner. What are your thoughts on Noah this season?
Do you want me to go first, or?
Oh, yeah, just jump in. Otherwise, it's like I'm being like, Rob now, and just
yeah, it's fine, mate.
Go for it.
Yeah, very impressive. I think he's one of those people that if you played Football Manager or you were on Twitter for a while, he seems to have been around for years and years, and yet he's still really, really young. And I think sometimes you look and think, he's 23, I wonder what he's going to do, and he's like, he's not, is he? And he can still, only just be coming out under 18s. I think he's got miles better, which is testament to him because he was, he's very good last season as well. Again, he's durable. He can play two positions. He's strong. He's deceivingly quite quick. He covers ground quite quick. He might not have the fast burst that someone like Sam Greenwood does, but his positioning skills are second to none. Again, he can fill into defence when it's needed. If someone like Charlie, because Charlie is very good on the ball, so he can push forward. It allows someone like Noah to go in behind. And I think he's just been unlucky at the same time because he's had an amazing season, and yet he's got Jack Jenkins in that similar sort of position. So say if Jenkins, touch wood, he doesn't happen. But say if he had got an injury, he might have got more more minutes. But yeah, I expect him to have a big season, and of course, I'm not sure what the club's plans are for any of the players to go on loan, but I think he'd be a good addition because he's very well built, he's very powerful, and he's still very young, so he's probably got a lot more left.
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Tom says. Really, he's had he's between positions, really, isn't he? And it's the strength of the 23s that two positions that have got such good sort of footballers at those already. So he's sort of next in line for both of them. So he's obviously maybe not played as much as he maybe would have wanted, but any time he has, he's sort of taken that sort of opportunity and played really, really well. And I think obviously he's still so young. He's got so much learning and developing. I think he's another player that we keep saying it, but we can all be sort of quite excited about seeing where he goes in the next sort of 12 months, whether that's out on loan, whether that's at the club. Obviously, we'll find out this summer.
Can I
He's
say,
an
Tom,
impressive young man.
you can,
Oh, sorry.
You can sink the Titanic with what you've got in that glass.
First, mate, round of golf, difficult conditions, had to battle through. Our here on time as well, so you know, it's just what it is, mate. I just take it in my stride. I've run out now, though, so if I start to struggle, then you know why.
Right. Sorry, Rob.
No, all I was going to say is I think the award's justified because he's quite an impressive young man off the pitch. I mean, not that I know him or anything, but from what you hear and see and echoes on Twitter. And he also won an award, didn't he, or separately to that for his academic contributions outside of the footballing world. So I think, you know, an impressive young man with a lot of footballing and general world IQ. So hopefully he sticks with us and keeps developing. And like the lads have said, it's a shame he couldn't get more minutes, but he's vying for positions and minutes in that role that, you know, he'll either probably go out on loan or he'll stay with us next year and hopefully get to show what he can do more on a football pitch. But an impressive young man nonetheless, at least.
What was the award you won? Like nicest guy in football or something?
It was an academic. We covered it on the podcast. I'm really going to embarrass myself by not remembering the exact title of it. But it was it was an academic award, wasn't it, for earlier on in the year, sort of January time.
Okay, and of course, Leeds won the Academy of the Year as well. It's just stacking up these awards at Ellen Road. Joe Snowden. Do we know much about him? He was the under-18s player of the season. I don't know how deep our academy knowledge goes. That's certainly too far for me. Anybody? Joe?
No, I don't. I mean, it's kind of mixed. I've seen snippets of sort of the 18s, mainly because of sort of the way that the EFL Cup sort of fell at the start of the season, when a lot of them, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't just under 18s, it was like under 16s as well when they were playing at Accrington. So that's sort of the only real glimpse I've had of them. And obviously, I think Jeremiah Mullen has been one that's sort of really impressed when he's sort of come into the 23s on a couple of occasions this year. So, yeah, I don't know too much. Obviously, I think it's Alfie Hughes who signed a professional contract today in the retained list. So, yeah, there's obviously... It's difficult because they've had, similarly to the 23s, they were boosted up to the Category 1 status, and obviously I think they was it second bottom, so they've had a bit of a difficult sort of adjustment year, but there's still obviously a lot of talent in there.
Just from what I've seen of him, he's on the couple of games I've been able to watch. He's just very busy. He's all action, quite quick. He gets around the box very well. He was very good against MK Dons in the FA Youth Cup, the game we covered, and obviously to come out of Man City's youth academy and come to us a couple of years ago, you know, it shows he's got some potential to be at that level. You know, because their academy is looking pretty strong at the minute. So, yeah, he looks like he's got a bright future. He could be one of those players that, depending on what the 23s do, we might see a couple of appearances for the 23s. He could well be one of the ones that's next in line. But yeah, you know, from what I've seen, he's very good, and hope, you know, he has been the standout player for under 18s.
Right. Yep. So just some more messages. Matty says signed from Man City, I believe. So there you go.
Said that, Mate.
Yep. Tom said that. Thanks, Matty. Thanks for your input there. Jeez. Hey.
You said this taste you said that with, Tom, was quite something.
I expected him to be in on time.
Yeah.
And Joe mentioned that Alfie Hughes has been offered his first professional contract. There he is, wearing number 19. The next Pablo Hernandez, maybe.
No pressure.
Didn't we sign him from Manchester United? The other Manchester. Didn't he come through their youth academy? He's come to us from there, I think, from previous step below under 17s.
I'm not sure on it, but he's very good from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Very busy.
He plays a lot.
I'd hate to play against him.
So, continuing with the awards then, very quickly. All four of Leeds under-23 summer signings have been nominated for Premier League 2 Player of the Month awards this season. So it was Sam Greenwood in September, Cody Drame February, Joe Urquhart in March, and Crescencio Somerville in April. And Joffy and Somerville are two players we sort of haven't spoken about yet, but they've two players that have had fantastic seasons as well. Do we have a couple of words for them, and maybe a little mention for Niall Huggins as well? Rob.
Yeah, I mean, Somerville for me has been a real bright spark on the wings. He's got that ability to shift his balance. I still remember that comment where it came from, was it his brother or someone that watched the podcast earlier on in the year and said they trained him with his low center of gravity to be versatile on switching his feet. It was some lesson he got coached when he was really young, and he's worked on it ever since. So these little tidbits are helping him develop at a fast pace. And I think me and Matty had a big discussion once about how it was great to see that he took an opportunity. He could have stayed in Holland or equally a league of a similar standard and been playing first team football, but he chose to come and work under the kind of Bielsa structure and come to Leeds United as a club to develop with us. And Mark Jackson's continued that, and his coaching team have continued that. You can see he's got bags of talent, fast. Sometimes his final ball is crossing, but he's a young lad, and he's been a real flash of brilliance on the right wing. And then obviously, what can you say about Joffy? I mean, again, similar thing. He could have been in a championship squad easy, play regularly week in, week out, but he chose to come to us. I think he's probably, out of all the players we've spoke about tonight, maybe the next in line to be a kind of Shackleton, Davies type player who's going to be more and more on the bench of the first 11, depending on what happens with the signings and ingoings and outs for both 23s and first 11 this summer. So Joffy, brilliant. The Rooney comparisons will stay with him until he inevitably starts making regular first team appearances and proves that he has got that ability because he can finish, as we know. Again, another lad that seems to have got immense footballing IQ for his age and passion. Every time he plays, you know that he wants to take a game by the scruff of his neck and either score or link up with someone to score. He really has got a drive for football. So yeah, both of those two lads, absolutely phenomenal, and looking forward to seeing more of them next year.
Just picking up on what you said about Somerville. So I've got it up here. Here it is. So this was the player profile we did earlier in the season on Crescencio, and Yves Morel made it. Sorry if I've butchered that name. To answer your question, 29-14, we trained him to switch more easily between left and right brain parts. The reason for that is to make it more natural and easy for him to use his left and right foot when needed. So there you go. So it was a brain tuning, and that was.
Didn't he link a YouTube video of like him training when he was much younger, when he was like a teenager, earlier teenager than he is now, and it showed him just switching play, like slaloming almost around the cones. So it's great to see the work that goes into keeping these players like finely tuned athletes.
Yeah, he did link it. We could show like maybe 10 seconds of it. There you go. So that's some of Somerville's left foot and right foot. Without breaking too many copyright infringements again. Joe?
Yeah, I think Rob's pretty much said everything that can be said, to be honest.
He usually does.
Yeah, Somerville, I think the first obviously was still adjusting, and there was a little bit of, weren't too sure what Leeds had got there, but I think that Burnley game, he really sort of came out his shell, scored. Was it a hat-trick or two? I can't remember
Yes.
Memory shot. And sort of from there, he just kicked on, didn't he? And you could see his confidence sort of grow, and the responsibility that he was then sort of allowed with Drame on that side. I think those two, that partnership was, I think a lot of defenders in the division were looking at those two on the team sheet before the matches and thinking, no, thank you. So, yeah, and then Joffy, what a player he looks like. I think we said when I came on the podcast earlier in the season, I tried to not big him up too much, but then spent the next 5 minutes bigging him up. But it's difficult not to talk about him and wax lyrical because he just looks like such a gifted footballer. And it was interesting because he's done an interview, I think, this week or last week, and he was talking about when he signed for Leeds and the way that they set a plan out for him. The idea was that he wanted to play more under 23s football this year because at Wigan he was sort of caught between the two and he wasn't really playing for the 23s or the first team because he was just coming on as a substitute. So I think the idea was for him to get a sort of season under his belt of playing consistent 23s football. And I think also if you see a sort of picture of him quite recently, you can see that he's been well drilled in Bielsa's fitness regime from when he first sort of joined. Not that he was sort of, overweight or anything, but you can see that he's sort of undergone that first year of football. And I think next year, I think everyone should be sort of quite excited about how close he might end up sort of being to the first team in the Premier League. And it wouldn't surprise me if he starts sort of getting some minutes.
Tom?
Yeah, just to add what Joe said, mate, I think for him to come in and show the attitude, as Rob said, he genuinely looks fuming when he does something wrong. Like he sets ridiculous standards for himself, and sometimes it gets him in trouble with yellow cards or bad challenges. But I think to be a certain level of a striker, you've got to have that brashness, you've got to have that cockiness about you a little bit, that you expect to score every game, you expect people to pass to you. It sort of borders on arrogance, but he seems to have it perfectly managed at the moment. I was a bit gutted for him. I did think he'd get a first team game this year, not to start, but maybe just 10 minutes. Obviously, he's been injured, so I'm very hopeful for him that he does get that chance next season. Some of the things he does, you don't really. I mean, obviously, there's been some great players over the years, but for Leeds Academy fans, and he's probably the brightest spark we've had coming through. He does things that you don't expect him to do, that you don't think other people should do, and he just leads by example in that respect. And with Somerville, obviously, he came with a bit more of a wider reputation because he'd been playing in the Netherlands. But again, he's someone that I think his attitude's improved a little bit in terms of his work rate. He fits the mould of a winger that would fit in our first team system, because he also impresses defensively more than he does going forward. He's more than happy to get back and put a challenge in. So he looks like he's got that desire to learn and push himself, and alongside Cody and Sam, I think it's just to tip your hat to the recruitment of what the club's done at Victor Orta and everyone else involved to sign those 4 players that have transformed the team, and it makes you excited to see what could be coming in the next couple of months, because whoever they're going to sign has to be very good to replace those 4.
Right, just getting round to some of your comments then. 8-Ball Ali, I've been impressed with Huggins. He's like Alioski if Alioski was sane. And going back to Kennett, one of my favourite Football Manager players for a long time now. But Mike says he needs to work on his end product. And Russ said, question for Tom, do you think Joffrey will be included more in the first team next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's just similar to what I answered earlier. I just think he's probably the one that's, I think Rob mentioned it earlier, that he's probably the next in line. We've had players that have come through that have gone on to do it. And I think naturally, if you asked to vote with all the Leeds fans who they would like to see next, I think he would lead it. No offence to everybody else in the squad. But yeah, for someone in his position, with Bamford and Rodrigo in there, I'd like to see him maybe get some minutes. It could be in the pre-season, depending on what they do and where they go. It could be that he gets a few minutes there for the fans to witness. But yeah, everything seems exciting, mate, which is really good, because I've said that on previous podcasts. I remember as a fan for years, and you just got used to it constantly. Every good academy player we had either got sold or was in the team for a year and then sold again. And you watch Charlie Taylor the day at Burnley, and he's a terrific player. You just feel like he's one of those that if we'd have just had the regime we've got now a couple of years earlier, that would probably still be in the squad.
Okay, and a couple more comments. Chris Baldwin says Leeds will need to build a new trophy cabinet and take all the cups and saucers out of the old one. A bit of a reference to Brian Clough in the comments earlier. And Derek Moore, evening folks. Evening, Derek. It was like watching first team football all season. And I think a lot of us felt that way. It was just the quality of the under-23s. Honestly, I'd never really thought about watching the under-23s until the last couple of seasons, as Bielsa and Rads has obviously invested more in it. But as Bielsa has integrated some of these players, and obviously the style of football has gone kind of all the way through. And that's kind of leading on to the man I wanted to talk about now, which is this man. Mark Jackson. So I think you alluded to it at the start, at the top of the hour, Joe, about how Carlos left and we sort of didn't know how things would go. Well, there's the man there, Mark Jackson, the gaffer with the trophy. So it's gone pretty well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's because there was obviously a relatively successful period of time under Carlos, and he came in, 2017, I think, and there was the sort of 23s team had sort of just been filled with players who were sort of brought in to just sort of fulfill the fixtures, and that's no disrespect to what happened or the players in that squad, but I think there was a lot of turnover at that level of talent, and some of it was good talent that we just didn't see the best of, unfortunately. But obviously that took sort of 6, 7, 8 months, and then the second half of that season they sort of took off. And I think the first team weren't doing too well, and I think a lot of people were turning to the 23s, and that was when we got heading down to the first team game on a Saturday morning. So the way that Mark Jackson sort of carried that through, the momentum gone sort of upwards, really. It's been fantastic to see. He's had his own sort of imprint on this squad, and the way that there was a period of time where I think we were all wondering who was going to step in, and when it was sort of came about that he was going to take the job, it felt like the most natural fit for the whole sort of academy structure. He knew the players, he'd been coaching the players. There'd been a lot of sort of development time from him invested in a number of players over the course of a few seasons. So to see him sort of take the 23s on, be given that responsibility and promote within was sort of a really good reward for him and the hard work that he'd put in since joining the football club. And it's fantastic to see the success he's having. Obviously has managed to, I suppose it's been difficult because sometimes there's first team players that have had to, the demands, and Bielsa's talked about this a lot in his press conferences at times, where he's sort of had to make sure certain players get minutes like Tyler Roberts or people coming back from injury, and he's still not sort of lost the structure of the squad. And the way he's managed that, the way he's developed the team, and the way he's built sort of a winning culture among that squad has been fantastic. And I hope he enjoys this summer, because he's set up a fantastic fixture list next year. It's going to be some tasty ones on there.
Okay, so we're just having a couple of technical issues with Rob, but I'll go to you, Tom. What's your impression of Mark Jackson this season?
Yeah, very tough to follow what Joe said, mate. I thought he summed it up perfectly, really. Carlos was great. He was very passionate, sometimes maybe a bit too passionate, and very hard working, as Joe said. A lot of the coaching staff that I first got to be introduced to worked more hours than most coaching staffs I've seen at that level. Demanded so much of each other, got the reward with that double success in the PDL, and yeah, it's a very hard job to fill in. I think because of the attention the 23s got that around that time, it was. I think a lot of people thought that Marcelo would maybe drop one of his coaches down and they'd take it, but I think to bring Mark Jackson in, someone that's brought the under-18s that were doing quite well as well. They had some good cup runs. I don't think you could really ask for someone in a better position that knows what the future of this club is. As the 23s. As they come through, if they go into the first team, if they get sold, if they get moved on, you are going to need to replace them. And who better for someone that's brought through the under-18s? I haven't met him too much. For the times I've met him, he's been a really nice guy and very helpful, always willing to chat and stuff as well. And I think he deserves all the success he gets. And I hope he stays at Leeds for a long time. And I'm sure there'll be, if he does it again and we have a good position, I'm sure other clubs will be interested. But he seems like someone that's obviously worked his way through the game. He obviously had a good career. He's been in the game a long time and seems to have learned everything in the right sort of manner. And yeah, as Joe said, he just seems to have got the best out of his players. Aggressive when he needs to be on the sideline, but also very understanding when they've had a tough performance as well. And there's a lot of big personalities in there that have come from different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and I think he's managed them perfectly and got the best out of them. So yeah, very impressed. And I think as well, the coaching staff a little bit has changed. He's got his own guys in there as well. They deserve a lot of credit, and so does all the academy staff, head of academy that have worked tirelessly for this, because to get promoted in your first year, I think once the season started, I think many people expected it with how well they were playing, but to do it is another matter as well. So yeah, I think he's been great, mate.
The culture they set, sorry to blow in, but it became almost a weekly occurrence of people would tune in on Monday and just expect a win, and that's the culture that Jackson sort of brought to this team and squad. And I think the most impressive things were when he was speaking in the post-match after, and he speaks really well, and he was talking the other night at the Player of the Season Awards, and I think he seems to be a really good coach and fit for that team, and all the players, whenever you talk about him, even sort of down to when Carlos was still here. I remember sort of talking to Jamie Shackleton after that sort of PDL win, and he was full of praise for Mark Jackson and the way that he'd sort of helped him and brought him on. So I think if you've got someone like that, I think it can only be sort of like a shrewd little appointment to just shift them up a level, because he knows all the players inside out, and the culture that he set, I think, in this squad this season, I don't think can be sort of frowned upon. Really, it's been phenomenal to watch, and like I say, fans were tuning in on a weekly basis and just going, right, who are we beating this week? And it's not an easy thing to turn up at Category 1, level and just turn teams over. But that was the stage it got to.
Just to add to that as well, I think it means an awful lot to. I think if you actually, I think somebody put it up on Twitter a while ago, and I can't remember who it was, but if you actually look at the trophies and the success that Ollie Casey and Charlie Cresswell have had together, from the under-18s and below that, knowing Ken has been there as well, I'm sure it helps them massively at a level that they're maybe not familiar at and maybe sometimes doubt themselves. They've got that coach that backs them, that has been there and done it with them. So that familiarity, I think, is massive as well.
We just got a few of your comments, and please keep them coming in. We love to hear what you've got to say as well. Mark Jackson has been great man management from Perig. Thanks for joining us again, mate. Mike, listening to Jackson at Leeds Awards, and he seems to be in competition with Dallas to be the most humble at the club. And that's kind of what goes with what you were mentioning, Joe. And maybe I'll point this question to you then, Rob. Put you on the spot. 8-Ball Ali, do you guys think he could take over the first team when Bielsa retires?
Listen, I mean, that's a very kind of leading question, isn't it? It's presuming
boots to fill.
It's loaded. I think. Listen, Mark Jackson's a proven winner, and the humble comment is one that I was going to say. If you came to me, I was going to say he's humble, and he's won at every level he's been at, hasn't he? He's won things, and Joe's mentioned it there. People were tuning in to say, who are we turning over this week? It's that ethos and that mentality. One of the big things I would say about him is that he's flexible. He's adaptable, it seems, with his coaching style. He's adaptable, it seems, with his methods of handling media. He'd be internal with LUTV and the website and stuff, or whether it's sort of external sources like newspapers and so on. I just think he's a really, really, really good coach. And, the question of can he step up, I don't think is one that we probably should ask. I think naturally, if he keeps developing the way he is, then he's certainly heading to someone of an academy. Great, if that makes sense. I think he'll make it to that level where he'll be renowned in Leeds Academy. Will he make it above that? I think there'll be some clubs that might come knocking on the door if we do well, as Tom mentioned, in the PL2 Division 1 next year and maybe the year after. But replacing Bielsa, I don't think Radrizzani, that would be the strategy that he would look to go down. My personal opinion. It's nothing on Mark or his coaching abilities, because, as I say, I think he's a proven winner, and there's nothing to stop him coaching at the highest level if he carries on delivering the results and delivering the squads that he has and the mentality that he does with his teams.
Yeah,
It's a good question, but I never ever want to think of that man retiring. So
yeah. No, that's it.
Mark Jackson could easily do it, but I don't want to think about that prospect.
Especially having, just experienced saying goodbye to Pablo and Gaetano. I think that's a little taste of what will be coming. Unfortunately, they call him the widows of Bielsa, don't they? Not many would want to step in Bielsa's shoes. From Bob.
One thing, Donnie, wasn't there an infographic? There was something, and this is where Mark Jackson, I'm sure himself, has probably sat and looked at this and thought, this is probably an opportunity to learn. There was a crazy infographic going around about the Bielsa's family tree, the reach that people who've played for him or coached with him before have gone on to coach or manage at the highest level in various different leagues across the globe. So in that essence, if Bielsa's going to have a say in who does come next, and like I say, we don't want to think about it, then if Mark Jackson keeps delivering for him, under 23s and development like squads that can play with his ethos, deliver them at the fitness that he expects and demands, and with the quality, and develop these players into players that Bielsa would want, then why not? Because he's kind of giving him the molds of the next generation of what a Bielsa squad should be. So hopefully, if he does that with your Somervilles, your Gelharts, your Greenwoods, as we've all spoke about, then potentially that long reach of Bielsa and people going out into the world and doing well after they've been around his aura, around his magical presence, may continue with Mark Jackson.
Okay, and just before we finish up with looking at the summer and next season, Nova said, it's all right. The final sacrifice of Forshaw will be to make Bielsa immortal and keep him here forever. It sounds like a plot of an incredibly good 80s horror film there. Angus Kinnear has said about the summer there will be a stream of recruitment at under 23 level where it does not get as much coverage, but I think Gelhardt, Greenwood, Drame, Somerville have all got huge potential and starting to push for a first team place. So a stream of recruitment. How good can we get? Do you guys have any idea of where we might be looking, or do you have any names? Tom, I'm looking at you.
I think he's talking to you, Joe.
Huh?
I was just thinking about that Kinnear quote and saying it doesn't get as much coverage, and I feel personally attacked because I sit and cover 23s every day. Thanks, Angus. No, I think it'll be. I think now that they're in the top division, I think the idea was when sort of Victor Orta came in a few years ago, was that they wanted to get the category 1 status and players and be the elite academy that was able to fling their doors open to the best talent either in Europe or in this country. And I think we've seen that they're not scared to invest in players. You look at the likes of, was it 3 million on Greenwood, $1.5 million on Joffrey, obviously with Wigan circumstances, but then I think $500,000 on Cody Drame with, all our dons included in those. But it's getting the balance, isn't it? Because if you bring in 3 or 4 in this summer, you're going to have to let a few go at development level. So it'll be interesting to see the sort of tack that they go down. I think it'll be sort of similar again, maybe picking out sort of talent that's potentially not needed at top academies or elsewhere. I think Greenwood was available because I forget the name of the lad, but the Arsenal have got a couple of forwards coming through, and one particularly is pushing on the first team, and that was a reason that Orta decided to pounce and go and get Sam Greenwood. So I think there'll be a lot of sort of business like that done this summer, and it'll be interesting to see who he goes for, because Somerville again was maybe not someone who was on sort of radars, but has been a shrewd addition that you can see how he's a Bielsa sort of type player in the next 2 or 3 years. So I imagine it'll be very much the same again, looking across the sort of board at players maybe that are potentially out of contract or maybe unwarranted because of potentially other players, and see how they fit into Bielsa's sort of moulding, so to speak. Okay,
and obviously Alfie McCalmont has gone off on loan and now has a call up to Northern Ireland. So maybe that's a positive sign for players who might be thinking about going out on loan, players like Jamie Shackleton. And I've heard Ollie Casey is off to Blackpool. Is that right?
I don't know if it's definitely going there, but there's I think a good chance he goes out on loan next season, which will be, I think, fully deserved. And I think it'll be, you see the success that Alfie McCalmont's had at Oldham this year, and I think a lot of players will be looking at that in the U23 squad and thinking, I quite fancy a bit of that action, because obviously the U23s is a breeding ground for learning the Bielsa way. It's a fine balance of trying to figure out who you want to stick around in that and who you want to sort of go up. Maybe I think Sam Greenwood, for example, is potentially another one who could possibly go to like the Championship. Maybe, for example, I think it was interest, was it from Swansea on the final day that Leeds sort of turned down. They wanted to sort of have him for a season, but it wouldn't surprise me there if maybe you saw him go out and Joffrey kept behind, that kind of one in, one out sort of idea. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who does go out on loan. I'm not sure about Alfie. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him, because I don't imagine that he's going to want to stick around and not play first team football next year after having such a great season with Oldham.
Tom, Rob?
Yeah, it's tough, mate. For me, Alfie's massively surprised me in a good way as well. It's not that I didn't think he was a good player at all. I thought he was technically very sound, very confident in himself. I always remember Alfie McCalmont when Leeds played Barnsley, and this was pre-COVID, so we're allowed to go to the ground. And Barnsley's training ground's right next to Oakwell. So Oakwell's on your right-hand side, and you sat on this little pitch, and I think it was his parents. And it was like that nervous mum feeling, and like she'd be like kicking every single ball sat right in front of me. So I was commentating, and every single thing he did, she was like going wild for, and she was like the proudest person ever. And then I obviously was trying to watch him play, and I thought he grew into that role in that middle of midfield. And then I was a bit disappointed from like a perspective of, I've said to Ben quite a few times this season, there's going to be a time where quite a lot of these players leave, and we're not going to get to see them again in our sort of jobs and to sort of enjoy the experience, because I want the lads to go and have, like anyone, to have great careers. Hopefully at Leeds, if they don't, there's still no slouch to go play Football League, 200-300 games. It's an amazing achievement. And I think, like Joe said, he's surprised him massively because he's gone and become like a goal scoring midfielder, where I thought he'd be someone that would just control the game rather than go and get goals. So it must be very tough for him to then go and do what he's done, because I don't think there'd be any shortage of offers for him in the Football League to go out on loan. And I think that's where the recruitment comes in. I think people like Casey could easily go out on loan. I think there's a couple. I think Leif Davis probably could do with a loan when he gets regular game time, because sometimes when he's coming to the 23s, he looks too good for that level in terms of he's fast, he's very strong in the air, he's great in the tackle, and then you've got 3 more left backs that could play there, and that's no slouch on him. So I think it's very, very tough, and I think it's a tremendous achievement for him to be in the Northern Ireland squad, and it just shows, if you can get a successful loan, what it can do for your career.
Rob, I don't know about you, but I feel like Greenwood in the Championship, like I would actually tune in. I would tune in for that, because
he'd terrorise defence if he's got the right setup behind him. Mine was more of a question on this one, actually. I'll ask the lads, what would you do? I know it's different. There's different people at different stages of the career. Like you said, Leaf has floated around more near the first 11 and the subs bench, and he's probably, say, at a different place than maybe a Casey. But would you stay with Jackson and stay in the PL to Division 1, or would you want to go out on loan if you're one of these lads now? Would you want another season at it with this squad after your success, after winning the league? Or, I mean, just as a question for you guys, or would you think, actually, looking at McCalmon and what the success that can give, should I go on loan? Or equally, some of the players that we've had out on loan where it's not working out so well for them, which we're still waiting to hear about their futures, it's a risk, isn't it? What would you do you think?
It's a very good question, mate. I think it depends who. I know it's going to sound really boring, but I think it depends who you are. If you're someone that's got 3 or 4 people that can play in your position, that there's competition, and someone comes in for you in League 2 and you can go get 30 games, then it's very tough. And there's that old cliche in the way you become a man. You grow up. It's that fine line between. Because I'm not saying they're mothered at Fort Park. What they've done is great, but you go to worse ground, you go to places where the pitch isn't great, you go and get, probably after COVID, more abuse on the sideline, you get to experience that stuff where you get that match day experience. But then you can sort of see it on the other side of things, where how often can you say you were part of an academy that Marcelo Bielsa had a little part in, that Mike Jackson had a part in, where you could be coming through. So for me, it would just depend on position. I think Ryan Edmondson left at the perfect time. He was scoring goals for fun. Obviously, he left in the PDL. I think if he'd have stayed this year, it might have been a different story. But for me, it's position dependent. It's someone like Elijah Caprill, I think, has been amazing. But sometimes keepers have to go out on loan to get that toughness about them, that experience as well. So yeah, that's pretty much my summary on it, mate.
Fair enough. Joe, anything different? I just thought what your thoughts were, because some of these lads are going to stay and be a success next year under Jackson and want to work with him, but there are some that will. You look at Somerville just as an example. At one point, I had, when Costa was having his bad run, Poveda was out and in, and you thought, he could jump up a couple of places in the pecking order. And then as the kind of season's gone on, Poveda's been playing well again, and obviously Harrison came back into form, and then all of a sudden he's back down, down the order again. And again, these are all young lads, I know, but what do you think? Would you stay and have another go at the PL with Mark next year, PL2, or would you want to go out on loan?
I kind of agree a lot with what Tom said. It's about, I think, depending on where you are in the squad and what you've got behind you. So if you're someone like, I don't know, Ollie Casey, maybe if you've played a season, maybe it's that you decide that Charlie Cresswell's slightly ahead of him in the pecking order if you're Leeds United. So you decide that Cresswell is the one to stay, captain the sort of team in the PL2, and you let Casey go out and get some first team minutes. But I think someone like Leif Davis is a great example. He's sort of been in a catch-22 position where he's closer to the first team than most of the under-23 squad, but he's not getting minutes on a regular basis, probably in the same way that Jamie Shackleton, for example. And if you were Shackleton or Davis, I think this summer you'd be absolutely looking to get out on loan and get some first-team experience, because they're getting into the sort of early 20s and they've not actually played that much first-team football. And I think they'll want to go out, and it's the exposure that you get on loan. You know, it's not that you're not playing real football, because it's far from that. You're developing, you're learning your trade, but you want to. A lot of players, they want to go out and feel the playing in front of a crowd, proving it to themselves that they can. You know, playing the Football League is no mean feat, like Tom says. So entirely dependent. I think someone like Sam Greenwood, for example, I think I'd be tempted to let him go into the sort of like Championship, for example, next season, because I think what else is he going to learn at the development level? It's hard to know. Someone like Joffrey, I think, could potentially be a breakout star next season. Therefore, I think you keep him in. So I think you just do it on sort of an evaluation basis, but also who are they going to bring in this summer? How does that affect the squad at the moment? How does that affect the dynamic? So yeah, I think there's a lot of players that will be in that team this season thinking, what next step do I want to take? Is it best for my own sort of career to stay at Leeds United? Because let's be honest, unfortunately, the way football works, there are only 11 first team players that can play on a weekly basis in the first team, and not every single player is going to succeed at Leeds United, but it doesn't mean they're not going to succeed in their career. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's going to be a lot of decisions to have to be made this summer, because Leeds are going to still want a competitive team in that PL2, but they need to get the balance right. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Just to add to that, it's tough as well. Like, I think if you'd have said at the start of the season, like if you're a centre back now, I would personally want to go, because you've got to look at your centre back situation. As you say Casey is the example. You've got Charlie, then you've got 4 first team centre backs, which is quite amusing now because we had one for a while. But you know, that's the sort of position I'm sort of getting at. Like, if you're Jack Jenkins, you might want to go, because in the first team you've got Calvin, you've got Llorente can play holding midfielder, you have Forshaw if he's fit, you have Cocker that can play in there as well. So you know, it is very tough in that respect. But yeah, just to, you know, as Joe said, there is players that will play in the Football League and absolutely smash it, and it's a fantastic level. And unfortunately, you can't have everyone that turns good and plays for Leeds, which is a shame, because that's the success there you always want.
Can't forget that Cliggs played there as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so quite a few people ahead of you. At this point, I do have to contractually obliged to ask you to like the video if you're watching it on YouTube, and subscribe if you are new around here. That's just about all we have time for. I don't want to keep these guys for too long. So just enough time then for some final questions. If you want to get a question in really quickly, get in on the chat and we will read it out to these guys. And yeah, some final thoughts, lads. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for your time, everyone. Again, I think it's been an amazing season. It really is. I'm excited to get fans in to watch the games. Maybe if you've heard anything, chaps, I don't know where if we got anywhere that we will be definitively playing the home games next year for the 23s, or is it going to be a case of round robin again, where we can get crowds and ticket allocations and so on? But it's going to be good to get some fans down there to support the lads, whoever is staying and not going out on loan. Excited to see what Orta brings into the squad in the summer, and likewise what loan deals he can do to help keep developing these young lads. And it's been a pleasure to kind of, just as a fan, really. I mean, obviously I come on here once a week and talk nonsense for a bit, but actually to watch the football has been quite pleasing this year all round from all levels. So yeah, really good season, and looking forward to next year.
I was going to say, at least you come on, mate, unlike Matt, that decides to have a week off.
To go refereeing.
You know, don't play yourself down like that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. Like, you know, it'll be my 4th season doing it. You know, I'm very lucky to cover it. It's a very enjoyable sort of. I always joke with Tom Curran, because obviously he did it before me, and you know, he was the one that taught me. He obviously had to watch less desirable football compared to what I got to watch. So I know that, you know, I'm waiting for that 1 year where I just text Joe after a game and go, bad that one, you know, I've not done that. Something I've not done yet in like 3 years. So yeah, it's enjoyable. I hope the fans get to go, because there is a really good contingent of fans that go to away games as well. You pull up at the 23s, and we've been to like Alfreton, we've been to places like Accrington, and there were fans there, and it was absolutely freezing, and yet they still turn up. And you know, I just wish that hopefully there is some sort of a plan in place once the government allows it, where we can get fans back in, because that experience of doing the cup final when there was fans queuing around the ground is still one of the most surreal things I've seen, where I parked up at the opposite side of Ellen Road, I just thought something had happened, and I remember getting into the office and going, "Why is there a queue of people outside?" And they're like, "Oh, they try to get in." And I was like, "You being sick?" I was like blown away by it, and it was an amazing day as well. To have a penalty shootout, just a bit of drama, and there is that old cliche that Leeds take more, and people laugh at it, but it is one of the most fascinating football clubs in the world for that respect. That generally, if Leeds is 23s were in a big game this year, you could probably get plus 10, 15,000 for a Monday afternoon, because I think you mentioned it right at the start, Rob. I had a few tweets off people saying when the kids were at home because of the lockdown, and we're going to do PE in like inverted commas, and it was like Leeds versus Burnley at 1 o'clock, and it was like, we're going to analyse this game, and it was like, yeah, you're just having a bit of a day off, and fair play to you. So yeah, long may it continue, and hopefully we're sat here in a year's time we're talking and waxing lyrical about how good they've been again.
Okay.
I think the fact that they played at Guiseley before bodes well, because I think there's absolutely no chance once restrictions are lifted that they can play at Thorpe Arch without having to have some form of system, because you know what Leeds fans are like. They'll just be like 3,000 fans that turn up outside the gates and be trying to get through. So it'll be interesting to see what they, when they decide someone like, it was interesting that they played the Youth Cup at York, wasn't it? And that's obviously potentially somewhere that they could explore. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of, if they can get a partnership. But there is I don't know if the rules have stayed the same, but you do have to play a certain amount, don't you, at the sort of home ground as part of the player development aspect. So there will be a fair chunk of games at Ellen Road. So I'm just excited to actually go to games again. It's been sort of missed it. So and the fixture list is going to be really, really good fun next year. You've got Man City, Arsenal, Spurs, the big one, them lot over the Pennines. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes next year, and hopefully Mark Jackson can produce the goods again.
Okay, and Rob, I just wanted to ask you on, I guess it was our sort of debut season, covering the under-23s and the Roaring Peacock. So how have you enjoyed it? Have you liked it?
Mate, it's been a pleasure. I remember we were speaking last year. Was it like August, sort of? So we were like 5 months into lockdown 1. Everybody wanted to obviously be part of the celebrations that were still ongoing from the First 11's promotion. But we were all kind of looking forward eagerly to this next season. And we kind of were all a bit pessimistic about what we're going to do. And I remember we were talking about ideas, and you said for the Peacock Pod as an umbrella, you wanted to start looking at the under-23s. I said, I'll have a bit of that, because, I've followed them for a while, but not as closely as I have this season. And to the point where you find yourself like, either I'll be, sending Matty a WhatsApp, or I'll be just down some mad YouTube or transfer market rabbit hole at, late hours of the evening, researching players. Oh, he played for Darlington under-9s, just trying to think of things to talk about. But it's been really good, because it brings you closer to the club in a time when we haven't been able to be close to the club. I'm a season ticket holder home, and I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get to go to the last game. But fair play to those that did, and I've missed it. I've missed going. So the under-23s has given me an opportunity to still watch regular football on top of the First 11s. Come on here and talk to good chaps like you lot and other fans and people that we've interacted with in the community. Just it's been really interesting. I'll be very intrigued to get to some under-23s games up and personal next year, all being well with COVID restrictions, and carry on doing it. It's been a good season, mate. Yeah, really, really pleasure. It helps that the football's good quality, like Tom said.
Lovely. Yeah, it's been fantastic, hasn't it? And on Sunday, we will be reviewing the first team's first trip back to the Premier League in 16 years. We'll have most of the Peacocks there. Only a couple of stragglers won't be involved, but we'll be back again soon as well. Yeah, he's not there, is he? He's not coming. No.
Yeah, reffing again.
Yeah, reffing again. That's it. An interview tomorrow with Wani Jimena, and an interview tomorrow with Nora, who's in the comments moderating the chat, is holding up little messages to me. So Wani Jimena tomorrow, he does all the translations from Bielsa's old lectures. Just some comments then. Finally, 8-Ball Ali asking about Huggins. I've got to go and get my dinner. Ali, we can't talk about this now. Do you think he'll dominate our left side next season? I think it depends on the answer to Callum's question. Do you think we will invest in the 23s? I think if we bring in a young left back, maybe Huggins can sort of continue his utility role. He's sort of been moulded into the kind of Stuart Dallas, isn't he?
There was interest in him going on loan this year. I think Harrogate, but he never sort of went on that, kind of never developed. So you could see him. He's another one who's been sort of playing in the Wales setup, hasn't he? He's had a little bit of taste. He's another one that you could sort of see maybe potentially going on loan.
Lovely place to go out on loan, isn't it? Harrogate, hey?
Yeah, not bad.
Chris Baldwin, the circus has arrived in town. When the fans are allowed back, it will be carnage. Solskjaer, lock up your daughters.
There is a serious point to that, though. Not the Solskjaer bit, obviously.
Right.
The fact that like everyone's become, or like everyone says, "Oh, Leeds are my second team." As soon as fans get back in that ground, absolutely no way. That goes straight out the door, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
They'll have to start translating our chants. Okay, is that about it then? Some final goodbyes. So Rob,
Yep.
it's been great having you back.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, been good to see you. You can
Thanks everyone
follow
for
Rob.
tuning in as well. Yeah, just thank you so much for anyone that does like, listen, interact, comment, tweets, whatever it is. Just it's always a pleasure to start some discourse and have a chat with some like-minded people. So I appreciate your time as always.
Right. That's it. Yeah, sharing it with your friends and families. Just when you're walking down the street, bumping into random strangers. Have you heard about the Roaring Peacock? Yeah, it's great. You should get on it.
Just shout peacock at them and see what
Right. Just roar peacock at random strangers.
that won't get you in trouble.
No, definitely not. If you want to follow Rob, it's at Juicy Rob. And Joe Urquhart was with us today as well from the Yorkshire Evening Post at Joe Urquhart _.
Thank you very much for having me. I was just saying, I'm worried about Tom. Looks a bit dehydrated after he downed his drink.
Right.
You can see his ice is melting in the background there.
You're right, Tom.
I've got nothing to say to him, actually. I normally bite to him. I was going to let him slide. Thank you very much, guys, for having me on. I am hydrated. I drank some water while playing golf. Don't worry about me. But yeah, always a pleasure to be invited. And of course, hopefully next year we can have another successful season. I'm sure we'll be back on. Yeah,
we'll try and get you both back for a big pre-season preview. Not a pre-season preview, a season preview. There you go. We don't want to preview the pre-season. That'd be too much, even for me.
As long as we're not off kayaking down Cornwall or something again, then we'll be all right.
Right, we'll all be reffing. We'll all be with Matty. Yeah. They'll introduce VAR into Sunday League, and we'll be there in the. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. A few comments just to say goodbye. Love you guys. Great show from April. Thank you. Good stuff, guys. Thanks for all your efforts. Greatly appreciated. We'll see you soon. The Roaring Peacock.